Morgan ignored the incessant vibration of her phone as she studied the signal's modulation pattern. Government agencies, tech billionaires, religious leaders, all demanding explanations she didn't have. The observatory's main display showed the signal's point of origin shifting, no longer fixed beyond Neptune, but seemingly resonating from multiple locations simultaneously. "Dr. Morgan, you need to see this," called Dr. Javier Reyes, her quantum communications specialist. The Chinese observatory at Gizhou just confirmed identical readings. And look, he expanded a holographic display showing news feeds from across the globe. Archaeological sites worldwide were experiencing unprecedented phenomena. At Stonehenge, tourists captured footage of the ancient stones humming at frequencies that shattered nearby glass. Deep in the Amazon, a previously undocumented temple complex had suddenly revealed itself as the ground above it simply shifted aside. In Antarctica, research stations reported massive energy readings from beneath 2 miles of ice. "It's as if the signal activated something," Morgan whispered, the implication sending a chill down her spine. "Something that's been waiting." Her secure line blinked. Admiral Williams from DRPA, calling for the 5th time in an hour. "Morgan, I need answers," he demanded without preamble. "The president's asking if we're dealing with first contact, and I need to tell him something better than the stars are talking to our rocks." "It's not first contact," she replied, watching as new data streams flooded her terminal. "The contact already happened, thousands of years ago. Whatever left these devices embedded in our ancient sites was here long before humans built civilizations." "Devices? What devices?" Before she could answer, a priority alert flashed across all screens. Cameron Vega's team in Peru had breached the inner chamber of their glowing cave system. The live feed showed archaeologists in protective gear surrounding a perfectly smooth obsidian column that somehow cast no reflection. Symbols etched along its surface were shifting, rearranging themselves as if alive. Vega's voice came through, strained with both excitement and fear. "We've run preliminary dating. If these readings are correct, this artifact predates human evolution by at least 2 million years." Morgan's assistant burst into the room, tablet in hand. The signal changed. The lights throughout the observatory flickered and died. Emergency systems engaged, bathing everything in crimson. Morgan's quantum computer terminal, isolated from the main power grid, displayed a single message in a language that shouldn't exist in its database. "They have HEAR'd. They are coming. Prepare the instruments." Outside, car alarms began blaring across the city. In homes worldwide, electronic devices activated spontaneously, displaying the same mathematical sequence that had first appeared in Morgan's data. Children under 10 years old reported hearing a high-pitched tone that adults couldn't perceive. Morgan's phone rang again. Not Admiral Williams this time, but Takahashi from Tokyo. "The signal is changing," he said without introduction. "It's not just a warning anymore. It's instructions." "Instructions for what?" Morgan asked, though she already suspected the answer. "For how to fight back," Takahashi replied, his voice hollow with the weight of revelation. "And we have very little time to learn." In orbit, astronauts aboard the International Space Station reported a strange distortion at the edge of the solar system. A rippling effect like heat waves on a summer highway, but against the black backdrop of space. Behind that distortion, something vast was moving toward Earth, its approach marked by the subtle bending of starlight around its edges. Humanity's first hint that it was no longer alone in the universe wasn't coming as a peaceful handshake among equals, but as a desperate warning from the distant past. The instruments of our annihilation, or our salvation, had been buried alongside human civilization since its dawn, waiting for the day when their creator's ancient enemy returned to harvest once more. Takahashi's hands trembled as he manipulated the holographic rendering of the Egyptian sphere. Sleep deprivation and stimulants had left him wired, his thoughts racing faster than he could articulate them. Behind him, Japanese self-defense force officers watched silently, their presence a reminder of how quickly archaeology had become a matter of national security. "The patterns aren't just similar, they're identical," he muttered, overlaying the sphere's markings with symbols from Göbekli Tepe, Easter Island, and a dozen other sites, but encoded differently for different human cultures, as if what, Doctor? Pressed Colonel Tanaka, the JSDF liaison. As if they knew which human civilizations would arise, millennia before they existed. A notification pulsed on his display, a direct link from Morgan's team. The feed showed thermal imaging of Antarctica's ice sheet, where a massive structure was melting its way to the surface from below, the ice receding as if commanded to withdraw. "We're tracking 27 activation sites," Morgan reported, her face haggard from exhaustion. "The activity is accelerating with the approach of the objects." Those objects, the crystalline entities decelerating at the heliopause, had become the focal point of every military and scientific organization worldwide. Astronomical readings suggested each was roughly the size of Manhattan, their surfaces constantly reconfiguring like liquid intelligence. Takahashi's algorithm chimed, having completed its analysis of the Sumerian translations. "They called them the Devourers of Thought," he read aloud, the ancient text scrolling beside him. "Beings that drink the light of mind and leave only empty vessels behind." His screen flashed with an incoming priority transmission. "Admiral Chen from the Chinese Space Command. We've intercepted communications between the entities," she reported without preamble. "Not radio waves or any electromagnetic spectrum we normally monitor. They're using quantum entanglement channels, communicating instantaneously across vast distances." "What are they saying?" Colonel Tanaka demanded. Chen's expression remained stoic, but her voice betrayed her fear. "Our quantum eye translators have only deciphered fragments, but we believe they're cataloging us, calculating the biomass to consciousness ratio of Earth, estimating our yield." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. These weren't conquerors seeking territory or resources. They were harvesters evaluating a crop. Takahashi's focus returned to the ancient warning systems. These defense mechanisms, they're tuned specifically to human neural patterns, not just modern humans, the entire evolutionary spectrum from early hominids forward. He paused, a terrible realization dawning. Our entire species may have been engineered for this moment. Outside his window, the unnatural aurora had intensified, casting prismatic patterns across Tokyo's skyline. Citizens flooded the streets, some in panic, others in religious fervor, believing the lights heralded divine judgment. Similar scenes played out in cities worldwide as humanity confronted a truth our ancestors had encoded in stone and myth. We were not alone, and we had never been. In geosynchronous orbit, military satellites captured the first detailed images of the approaching entities. Their crystalline surfaces contained what appeared to be trillions of suspended points of light, each one pulsing with its own distinct rhythm. Those aren't structural components, Morgan realized, studying the high-resolution imagery. They're consciousnesses, preserved like insects in amber. The largest of the crystalline entities altered course, accelerating suddenly toward Mars. Instruments detected a massive energy buildup within the red planet's crust as dormant machines, buried for millions of years, began to awaken in response. Mars, once thought dead, revealed itself as something else entirely. The first line of an ancient defense system, now reactivating as the harvesters approached their next feeding ground. Humanity had 7 days to understand and utilize the tools our unknown benefactors had hidden throughout our world. 7 days before the entities that had consumed countless civilizations turned their attention fully to Earth. 7 days to master weapons we hadn't known existed until now, designed to be wielded by minds that had evolved specifically to operate them. The countdown had begun. Sophia Chen's hospital room had become a fortress. PLA soldiers guarded the doors while medical equipment monitored her brainwaves, which pulsed in perfect synchronization with the signal emanating from Mars. 19 years old and previously studying theoretical music at Beijing Conservatory. She was now patient zero in humanity's first encounter with alien consciousness. "Play it again," she requested, her voice unnaturally calm despite the electrodes attached to her scalp. The neurologist nodded to his assistant, who activated a recording of Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor. Sophia's brainwaves instantly shifted, forming patterns that precisely matched certain sequences in the ancient signals. "They understand music as mathematics," she explained, though no one had asked a question. "Each harvested consciousness becomes a note in their eternal symphony." Dr. Lin Zhao, China's leading xenolinguist, leaned forward. "How do you know this, Sophia?" The girl's eyes remained fixed on something beyond the hospital walls. "Because I remember being harvested. Not me. Someone else. A mathematician from a world orbiting a yellow dwarf star in what you call the Orion Nebula. They came just as they're coming here. They sang their harmony, and minds simply detached from bodies." In Washington, a hastily assembled joint session of Congress watched Sophia's interview in stunned silence. Similar scenes played out in parliaments and emergency councils worldwide as other sensitives awakened with identical knowledge. The percentage affected, approximately 3% of humanity, appeared consistent across all demographics, ages, and geographic regions, as if precisely calibrated. Secretary of Defense Williams addressed the silent chamber. "We've confirmed that the entities will reach optimal Earth orbit in 7 days. The first harmonic wave will convert consciousness to energy while leaving physical bodies intact. The second wave will harvest that energy, leaving behind." He paused, struggling to maintain composure. "Empty vessels. Billions of mindless bodies." In the Roosevelt Room, President Alvarez conferred with a coalition of world leaders via holographic projection. Religious tensions that had defined the past century evaporated in the face of extinction. Former enemies authorized unprecedented military cooperation as experimental weapons were rushed to deployment. "The Chinese girl mentioned counterharmonics," the Russian president noted. "Can we weaponize sound against them?" "We're trying," Alvarez replied. "But these aren't physical beings in any conventional sense. They exist primarily as organized energy that uses crystalline matter as a substrate." Across the planet, the sensitives began exhibiting new abilities. In a Brazilian hospital, a teenage boy accurately described harvester attacks on 12 different civilizations, drawing extinct alien architecture with perfect recall. In Mumbai, twin sisters simultaneously spoke 37 different alien languages, none known to Earth linguistics. In Toronto, an elderly professor of music who had collapsed during a symphony performance awoke conducting an invisible orchestra, his movements generating electromagnetic patterns that interfered with hospital equipment. Dr. Morgan's team, now operating from NORAD's hardened facility beneath Cheyenne Mountain, collated data from sensitives worldwide. A pattern emerged. Each affected individual resonated with a specific ancient activation site. They weren't random victims, but tuned receivers, their neural architecture compatible with the alien technology hidden on Earth. Meanwhile, military satellites recorded the harvester's arrival at Mars. The red planet's surface rippled as if suddenly liquid ancient machinery awakening beneath its dusty exterior. The largest crystalline entity positioned itself above Olympus Mons, extending filaments of energy deep into the planet's core. "They're activating something," Morgan observed, studying the real-time imagery, "something the architects buried there millions of years ago." A blinding flash erupted from Mars' North Pole, momentarily overloading all observation systems. When imaging resumed, a perfect hemispherical section of the planet's surface had reconfigured into a vast parabolic dish aimed directly at Earth. "It's beginning," whispered Sophia Chen from her hospital bed in Beijing, though no one had informed her of the Mars event. "They're tuning the harvester wave to human consciousness frequencies." In orbit, the International Space Station captured humanity's last unfiltered view of Mars as the planet's entire surface began to glow with increasing intensity. The countdown clock on Morgan's display showed 6 days, 23 hours remaining. The first contact humanity had dreamed of for centuries had arrived, not with a handshake or a message of peace, but with the cold calculation of farmers preparing for slaughter. The CERN facility had been transformed overnight. Where once physicists had probed the fundamental nature of matter, now neurologists, musicians, and quantum information specialists worked alongside military personnel to decode the sensitive's neural patterns. Dr. Morgan hadn't slept in 36 hours, surviving on military-grade stimulants, as she coordinated research teams across 5 continents. "Play it again," she instructed Dr. Sato, who sat before a modified grand piano connected to quantum sensors. The theoretical physicist closed his eyes, his synesthesia transforming the neural patterns displayed on surrounding screens into a complex melody. His fingers danced across the keys, producing sounds that seemed to exist at the boundary between music and mathematics. "There's a structure here," he said, continuing to play while speaking. "Not just notes, but something deeper. It's like counterpoint at the quantum level." On screens throughout the facility, the brain activity of sensitives worldwide pulsed in response to Sato's playing. In the Egyptian desert, the obsidian sphere's surface rippled like black mercury. "The harmonic convergence is increasing," reported a technician. "Coherence at 47% and rising." Admiral Chen entered the research hub, her uniform disheveled from 20 hours in a military transport. "The Security Council has authorized Operation Cacophony," she announced. "But we're running out of time." Outside, the sky had taken on an unsettling purple hue as atmospheric disturbances spread worldwide. Weather systems collapsed into chaotic patterns, communication suffered increasing disruption, and sensitives reported feeling the harvester's attention focusing more intensely on Earth. A proximity alert sounded throughout the facility. The experimental strike force had launched its attack on the nearest harvester. From a bank of monitors, Morgan and her team watched as quantum-tipped missiles, technology that had been theoretical weeks earlier, streaked toward the crystalline entity orbiting Mars. Most disintegrated before impact, their physical existence simply canceled by the harvester's reality-warping field. One penetrated, its detonation sending visible shockwaves through the entity's surface. For a moment, hope surged through the observation room, until the damage began to repair itself, the crystalline structure flowing like living glass to seal the breach. "Did you see that?" Morgan pointed to the screen where the missile had struck. "The lights inside. They dimmed momentarily. The consciousnesses they've stored were affected." Before Chen could respond, satellite feeds showed 3 smaller harvester vessels detaching from the main entity, accelerating toward Earth at impossible speeds. "They've decided we're problematic enough to warrant direct attention," Chen said grimly. "Conventional defense systems won't stop them." Dr. Sato's piano playing reached a crescendo, the melody evolving into something that resonated in the bones of everyone present. Across the globe, ancient devices hummed in response, their activation accelerating. "I understand now," Sato said, his fingers still moving across the keys. "The harvesters use perfect harmony to entrap consciousness, to make it conform to their pattern. But human minds." He played a deliberately discordant chord that somehow resolved into beauty. "We thrive on both harmony and discord. Jazz, not classical. Improvisation, not rigid structure." Morgan's eyes widened as comprehension dawned. The ancient devices aren't weapons in the conventional sense. They're instruments, amplifiers for human consciousness. The largest screen in the facility switched to a live feed from space. The Harvester scout ships had entered Earth's atmosphere, their surfaces glowing with accumulated energy as they descended toward major population centers and toward the ancient activation sites. Chen's secure communicator chimed with a priority alert. "They've made landfall in Cairo, Beijing, and Mexico City," she reported. "Ground forces are engaging, but conventional weapons are ineffective." Dr. Morgan studied the activation map where 60% of known sites now pulsed with increasing power. "We need more time," she said. and we need to understand exactly what will happen when we fully activate these devices. Sato's fingers paused over the piano keys. I don't think we fully activate them, he said quietly. I think they activate us. Outside, the sky darkened further as ionospheric disturbances increased. Humanity's desperate counterattack had begun, but the true battle would be fought not with physical weapons, but with the unique patterns of human consciousness itself. A symphony of resistance against beings that had never encountered true dissonance. The Egyptian chamber had been cleared of all non-essential personnel. Only Sophia Chen, transported from Beijing under heavy military escort, stood barefoot on the ancient stone floor. Medical monitors tracked her vitals as she approached the obsidian sphere, which pulsed with increasing luminosity as she drew near. Are you receiving this? General Nasser asked through the secure channel to NORAD, where Morgan, Takahashi, and the global response team monitored feeds from all activation sites. Confirmed, Morgan replied, her voice tense. Synchronization at all sites is holding at 87%. Proceed with contact protocol. Sophia placed her palms against the sphere's surface. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the obsidian liquefied, flowing up her arms in defiance of gravity, enveloping her in a cocoon of shimmering black. Before the security team could intervene, the sphere projected a holographic display that filled the chamber with stars, planetary systems, and beings unlike anything Earth's biologists had imagined. The four-eyed entities moved with fluid grace, their iridescent skin shifting colors with their emotional states. Though their appearance was alien, their expressions conveyed unmistakable determination and hope. The architects, whispered Dr. Takahashi from his observation post in Japan, where an identical scene played out. At activation sites worldwide, the sensitives received the same vision simultaneously, a direct information transfer that bypassed language entirely. Morgan's team recorded their responses, assembling the fragments into a coherent narrative as the architect's story unfolded. They achieved their technological singularity 23 million years ago, Sophia narrated, her voice overlapping with other sensitives across the globe, all speaking in perfect unison despite their different native languages. But unlike most species who reach that point, they maintained individuality while achieving collective intelligence. They explored the galaxy, connecting with younger species and guiding their development. The holographic display shifted to show the architects encountering vast crystalline entities in deep space, the first contact between the two most advanced consciousness forms in the galaxy. The harvesters were once like us, Sophia continued, but had evolved toward perfect harmony, eliminating all discord from their consciousness. This made them immensely powerful, but ultimately stagnant. They could no longer evolve or create, only consume. The images grew darker, showing worlds being harvested, their inhabitants' consciousness absorbed into the crystalline matrices, while their physical bodies collapsed, empty husks abandoned by the harvesters. The architects fought but discovered the harvesters couldn't be destroyed by conventional means. Each was a complex quantum system existing partially outside normal spacetime. So they implemented their contingency, seeding primitive life throughout the galaxy with specific genetic markers. The display showed the architects visiting Earth during the early Pleistocene, studying primitive hominids and making subtle adjustments to their neural development before departing. They encoded response patterns into our DNA, Sophia explained, her eyes glowing with the same iridescence as the architect's skin. They shaped our evolution toward a consciousness with the perfect balance of harmony and discord, minds capable of resonating with their technology, while remaining chaotic enough to disrupt harvester harmonics. At the NORAD Command Center, Morgan studied the neural patterns of sensitives worldwide, each now pulsing with the same complex rhythm. They chose us, she murmured, out of all possible species. But why? The answer came as the holographic display showed the final stand of the architects, their home system surrounded by harvesters, their civilization facing extinction. Rather than surrender, they activated a quantum device that scattered their consciousness throughout spacetime itself, becoming a distributed intelligence that existed outside the Harvester's reach. "We are their legacy," Sophia said, her voice taking on a resonant quality that seemed to vibrate the air itself. "The culmination of their plan. Human consciousness evolved specifically to serve as both instrument and musician in this final confrontation." As she spoke, the obsidian material covering her body began to change her, restructuring her on a cellular level. Similar transformations occurred at activation sites worldwide as the sensitives became living interfaces between human consciousness and architect technology. Outside the Egyptian chamber, the first Harvester extraction units had breached the military perimeter. Gunfire and energy weapons created a cacophony that seemed to strengthen rather than disrupt the transformation occurring within. "It's not just about saving humanity," Sophia transmitted to the other sensitives through their newfound connection. "It's about fulfilling our evolutionary purpose, becoming the instrument that breaks a cycle of consumption billions of years old." The obsidian flowed back from her body, revealing skin now laced with iridescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with the ancient devices. Her eyes, now containing the same diamond-shaped pupils as the architect's, fixed on the chamber entrance where the sounds of battle grew louder. "They're here," she said simply. "It's time to play our part." Captain Maya Rodriguez hadn't experienced silence since the battle began. For the past 36 hours, the ruins of Machu Picchu had echoed with gunfire, energy weapons, and the unsettling crystalline chimes emitted by the Harvester entities as they advanced. Her squadron had started with 28 specialists. Now only 7 remained, their position gradually being overrun despite deploying every experimental weapon in humanity's arsenal. "Hostiles breaching the western perimeter," reported Sergeant Diaz, his face streaked with blood and soot. 5 minutes, maybe less. Rodriguez nodded, checking the power cell on her plasma rifle. The weapon, prototyped only days earlier, could temporarily disrupt a Harvester's molecular cohesion, but each entity simply reformed after the effect dissipated. Only sound-based weapons had shown lasting impact, though ammunition for those was critically low. "Comms are back," called Private Zhang, their communications specialist, getting a signal from Dr. Takahashi inside. Rodriguez activated her neural transmitter. "Status report. 3 minutes until activation." Takahashi's voice came through, distorted by interference. "The resonance patterns are stabilizing, but we need 5 minutes minimum for full harmonization." "We need 5, she relayed to her team. "They've got 3. She gestured to their remaining sound cannons. "Make them count." Her squad positioned themselves at strategic choke points among the ancient Incan stones. The Harvesters advanced with eerie coordination, their liquid crystal bodies flowing around obstacles rather than climbing over them. Unlike traditional invaders, they didn't seek to kill, only to reach the ancient activation device at the site's center, where Takahashi worked with 2 college students now partially transformed by architect technology. They're splitting up, warned Diaz as the entities divided into smaller units, approaching from multiple directions simultaneously. Rodriguez triggered her plasma rifle, momentarily disrupting the nearest Harvester. Its surface rippled with what might have been pain, fragments of its crystalline body shattering before the main mass reconstructed itself. Inside the transparent entity, thousands of tiny lights pulsed, the preserved consciousnesses of beings consumed across cosmic time. "Sound cannons, concentrated bursts," she ordered. The specialized weapons discharge, emitting precisely calibrated frequencies. The effect was immediate. Harvesters caught in the sonic field vibrated uncontrollably, their perfect structure disrupting. For a brief moment, some of the trapped consciousness lights within them burned brighter, as if struggling for freedom. Inside the central chamber, Takahashi monitored the ancient device, an arrangement of quartz-like columns surrounding a central crystalline sphere. The 2 students, their skin now laced with circuitry-like patterns identical to Sophia Chen's transformation, stood with palms pressed against the columns. Their eyes had changed to the diamond-shaped pupils of the architects, and they spoke in perfect unison, despite having no previous connection. "Resonance at 70%, they reported. The harmonic wave is building. Outside, Rodriguez's team retreated step by step as more harvesters breached their defensive line. A sound cannon exploded as its operator pushed it beyond safety limits, the resulting sonic shockwave temporarily clearing their flank. 1 minute, came Takahashi's update. Rodriguez made a decision. Fall back to the inner circle, she ordered. Diaz, with me. She unclipped experimental sonic grenades from her belt, distributing them to the sergeant. We'll buy them that minute. Without waiting for acknowledgement, she charged toward the densest cluster of harvesters, triggering her plasma rifle in continuous fire mode until its power cell died. Then she activated the sonic grenades, the specialized frequencies causing the pursuing entities to shudder and fragment. 30 seconds, called Takahashi through the comms. Rodriguez found herself surrounded, the crystalline entities flowing around her, probing for weakness. She activated her final grenade, pressing it against her chest plate, where it would amplify through her armor's resonance chamber, a suicide tactic developed for exactly this scenario. Tell them we did our part, she transmitted before triggering the device. The sonic detonation tore through the harvesters, creating a momentary clearing. Inside the central chamber, the activation reached completion. The entire mountain shuddered as ancient machinery, dormant for millennia, fully awakened. A dome of iridescent energy expanded outward from the site, vaporizing harvester entities caught within its path while leaving humans unharmed. Rodriguez, somehow still conscious despite the devastating sonic blast, watched through failing vision as the dome expanded past her position. The last harvester attempting to reach her disintegrated into crystalline dust, the thousands of consciousness lights it contained briefly visible before fading. Her comms crackled with Takahashi's voice. Activation complete. Captain Rodriguez, do you copy? She couldn't respond, her body failing from the sonic trauma. But as consciousness faded, she witnessed a miracle. The two transformed students emerged from the central chamber, their eyes glowing with architect energy. They moved directly to her position, their hands emitting the same iridescent light as the protective dome. Your sacrifice is noted, they said in that unsettling unison, placing their palms against her shattered armor. But your part in the symphony is not yet complete. Pain vanished as architect technology flowed into her broken body, beginning a transformation that would ensure she would witness the final movement of humanity's defiant composition. Dawn broke blood-red across 6 continents, the atmosphere charged with particles from the harvester's preliminary harmonics. Dr. Morgan stood at the command center's observation window, watching the sky burn crimson above Cheyenne Mountain. Below, thousands of civilians had gathered, not in panic, but in focused meditation following the pattern's broadcast worldwide. Final status report, she requested, turning to the holographic display where military and scientific leaders from surviving command centers appeared. 63% of known activation sites are operational, reported Admiral Chen from the submarine carrier U.S. Nimitz, now humanity's most secure remaining command post. Harvester ground forces have overwhelmed 27 sites, but we've activated 15 previously unknown locations. The harmonic network is stable, added Dr. Taka. Morgan turned to the assembled leaders. This is it, she said simply. Everything we've learned, everything we are. It comes down to the next 7 minutes. Across the globe, billions of humans focused their thoughts according to the patterns distributed through emergency broadcasts. Religious leaders of every faith led their followers in prayer or meditation, creating neural states that amplified the ancient defense network. Parents held children close, couples clasped hands, and strangers formed circles in public spaces, humanity united in a final act of defiance. In orbit, Earth's remaining satellites captured the spectacle. Mars glowing with accumulated energy, its color shifting from crimson to purple to blinding white as the harvesters channeled power for their harvest wave. The perfect geometric arrangement of the crystalline entities created a focusing lens aimed directly at Earth. 3 minutes, came Sophia's update. I can feel them searching for our frequency pattern. Morgan watched as displays showed consciousness readings from population centers worldwide. Unlike previous harvested species who had achieved unified resistance that the harvesters easily overcame, humanity presented a constantly shifting target, billions of minds contributing to a collective pattern while maintaining distinct individual variations. "They're confused," reported Dr. Seto from Stonehenge, his expression one of wonder despite the approaching apocalypse. They expected harmony or discord, not both simultaneously. The first visual indication of the harvest wave appeared as a distortion rippling outward from Mars, bending starlight as it propagated through space. Earth's upper atmosphere began to glow with Street Elmo's fire as the wave's leading edge made contact. "1 minute," transmitted Sophia, her voice echoing through command centers worldwide. "All operators, prepare for counterpoint initiation." The transformed volunteers at each activation site began to emit synchronized energy patterns, their bodies serving as conduits for the ancient technology. The defense network activated fully, sites connecting to form a global lattice of iridescent energy that rose to meet the approaching wave.